So, Stephen King's book, Misery, has a lot of hidden details to other Stephen King books that a lot of you guys may not have noticed. So, I'm going to go ahead and show you what you missed. Welcome back to BG's Books. I'm Mr. BG, and today I will be doing a video where I looked through kind of some interesting things that I found while rereading Misery. So, of course, I read Misery for the second time last year, and then I did a whole review on it, which I still think that was pretty good. But this time, I have just finished reading Misery for the third time, and now I kind of want to look over some things that we all may have missed in Misery. So, of course, I previously did this with Carrie about a month back at this point. And, by the way, I'm just going to say it, Carrie will have to have a part 2 because I'm reading it again, and there's stuff I forgot to mention in the first video. So, yeah, I'm just going to say that. Carrie will have a part 2. But anyway, so, yeah, you get the rules by now. And, yeah, let's dissect Misery. Alright, just telling you there's not going to really be any categories this time, so I guess they're just all kind of miscellaneous, I guess. But, yeah, anyway, to start out the book actually starts out with Paul Sheldon already waking up in Annie Wilkes' house. Because if you remember the movie, which is incredible, by the way, there's a whole, opening scene where he finishes his book, gets in the car, drives down, and then, has the accident, and then stuff goes from there. But in the book, he's already had the accident off page, and the book opens up with him waking up in Annie Wilkes' house and meeting her and all that. Which is very interesting to say the least, because when I first read it, I knew that the movie started like that. So I was thinking, or I didn't know the movie, I didn't know the movie started like that. I read about what caused it, so I thought the book was going to show that. It did not, and the book just skips all that and starts right with that. So that's very interesting. And second of all, right after that, if you remember, the book that Paul was writing in the movie was untitled. It did not have a title. Paul just kind of wrote it and just didn't really know what to call it. But in the book he wrote was actually called Fast Cars. It was about, I think, a Puerto Rican American guy or something. Some sort of foreign guy, half foreign, half American, I think, that's like a car thief and stuff. And, well, the book could definitely explain it better than I could. But anyway, the book had an actual plot. It had a title. Paul knew what it was about and everything. And, yeah, so that's very interesting. And, so, yeah, also, Annie has him burn, every 9th page of the book, the title page, and then every 9th page, because that's a number power or whatever. Because in the movie, she just kind of had him burn it all. And while he does burn it all in the book, she just, sets lighter fluid on every 9th page. While we're on the topic of books, it looks like the Misery books aren't Paul Sheldon's only books. There's a couple lines, I believe, in the book that say that, Misery was only his most famous series, but he's had a couple books before and between those. But that's kind of it for that. There's not really a lot of information on that. But, I don't know, I just wanted to mention that because it's a difference, so I just wanted to mention that part. Alright, and so these next couple things I want to mention actually involves Annie's personal life and her family. First of all, her birthday is April 1st, 1943, April Fool's Day. I thought that was pretty funny, and so did Paul. And also, speaking of Paul, Annie has an older brother born in 1939, I believe, named Paul. So there you go. Annie's favorite author's named Paul, and Annie's brother's named Paul. And also she was born on the jokiest day of the year, which I just thought was humorous. But yeah, she also killed her father and stuff, you know about that. And then she was a nursing student and all that, you probably know that. But she killed many infants, a fellow nursing student, and then a bunch of other people. It's all in her scrapbook kind of thing. I know this probably isn't making a lot of sense to you, but I promise it makes a lot more sense if you read the book or watch the movie. The movie will do the scrapbook stuff for you. But anyway, so yeah, that's just kind of delving into Annie's personal life, which I thought was pretty interesting to say the least. And also, the book takes place in 1987, like the book came out in, as well as the movie took place in 1990, when it came out in 1990. So Annie in the book is 44, 47 in the movie, and then Paul in the book is 42, 45 in the movie. A lot of people forget that the Overlook Hotel from The Shining was actually referenced in Misery. Yeah, there's a brief little chat that they have that goes on for like 5 pages or so. Anyway, during that, Annie kind of mentions that her cabin is right outside Sidewinder, Colorado, which is basically where the Overlook Hotel from The Shining once stood, or it was outside Sidewinder, or somewhere around that. It was close to the Overlook Hotel, and that she mentions that the Overlook Hotel was burned down 10 years ago in 1977, which was when The Shining came out. And it burned down because the caretaker of the hotel was just crazy. And of course, that was Jack Torrance. And I kind of like this scene in the book because it explains that they know that the hotel burned down, but they don't know why the hotel burned down. Kind of like in real life, because we know the circumstances because we've read The Shining, so we know. But they didn't read The Shining in Misery because The Shining isn't a book in Misery. It was real life in Misery. So I just love the reference to the Overlook Hotel and the offhand reference to Jack Torrance. So that's kind of funny, but that's all it is for The Shining references. But I don't know, I just really like that. All right, so here we have reached our last segment of this video, which covers both differences between the book and movie and omissions from the movie that were only in the book. So first of all, I've already kind of talked about a couple, like how they differ in openings and regarding what Paul Sheldon's next book that she had him burn was and all that stuff. But what I bet you didn't realize was different was the changing weather. So if you remember in the movie was only told in like the snow and stuff, so it was either winter or like early spring or something. But anyway, according to the book, Paul ends up at her house around like mid to late February and then goes all the way until like the end of June. So there's like a lot more stuff that happens in the book because of how much longer it is, which I thought was really interesting because in the movie we only ever see snow outside. Yeah, the snow was melted a little bit occasionally, but that's kind of all we see. So yeah, I just kind of like the fact that Paul was in there for maybe like, I don't know, a month or two in the movie, and then in the book it was like 4 to 6. So I think that was very interesting. The next thing I want to discuss is Annie's farm animals. So of course Annie has a farm, and her favorite animal is her pig Misery, that she named after Paul's character, Misery Chastain. But she actually has a couple more animals in the book. She definitely has Misery the pig. I think she has like a couple of cows and maybe a horse or two. I'm not too sure about the horses, but she definitely has at least one cow because it actually dies and gets buried in the book. Very sad, but yeah. So Annie's stuff is also quite different. And then another thing that was omitted from, or that was changed for the movie entirely, was that there was a subplot in the movie where Paul was like hiding all these pills and stuff. And while he does do that in the book, he tries to spike Annie's drink with it when he has dinner with her. But that never happens in the book. That was the thing just for the movie, which I thought was very interesting. Another thing I want to get into is the Buster character, and how that Buster character died in the book. So, of course, in the movie, Richard Farnsworth plays Buster, the town cop or whatever who's tasked with looking for Paul Sheldon. But the thing that really is interesting about the book and the movie is that the movie focuses on Paul's point of view and Buster's point of view occasionally, but it really only focuses on Paul's point of view because we never see the outside world outside of what he sees from it. And so the Buster character, first of all, Buster doesn't exist in the book, only for the movie, but there is a Buster substitute in the book where it is a young cop that randomly shows up at Annie Wilkes' house. And then so Paul throws an ashtray through the window to get his attention. And then Annie Wilkes grabs the wooden cross that she used to plant the marker of the cow that died, and then basically stabs him with it, and then she runs him over with a lawnmower. Pretty graphic, I know. I mean, the way Buster died in the movie wasn't much better, but I mean, the book is just very graphic, you know. And then, of course, I think the biggest difference, come on, y'all say it with me, the hobbling scene. So, of course, the movie has made the hobbling scene very infamous, where Annie basically confronts Paul about all this stuff, and then she basically straps him to his bed and then shatters his ankles with a sledgehammer. Youch. If you heard something, I'm sorry. Anyway, and then in the book, it's actually much different. It's probably worse, depending on how you look at it. But what happens in the book is that she decides to torture Paul by hobbling him, not by shattering his ankles, but instead she has an axe and a propane torch that she uses. So she cuts off his entire left foot with 2 swings and then cauterizes the wound with said propane torch. Which, you know, youch, that is very painful, to say the least. And so that's probably the most, like, egregious difference between the book and movie. There's a couple minor things there, like Annie's freakouts being more, like, dramatic in the book than the movie, but that's not really worth mentioning. But what is worth mentioning is the second hobbling scene. And you're probably wondering, second hobbling scene, I remember there being one in the movie, because there wasn't. That was an omission from the movie. But the second hobbling scene revolves around Paul's typewriter because, you know, it had the N key missing. But after, you know, a long time of use, the T key and then the E key fell off. And so he kept complaining about it. And so Annie was just like, okay. So she grabs an electric knife and then just cuts off his right thumb. Just like cuts it entirely off. And so, yeah. There you go. And then now we got to mention the fight scene, because the fight scene, he tripped her over his leg and then she fell onto the typewriter in the movie. But what happened in the book is that there was a brief struggle. She caught more on fire than in the movie, and he still stuffed the pages down her throat, but she never got them out or anything. And instead of him tripping her onto the typewriter tripped her onto the mantelpiece, which cracked her skull open. And so she was found dead, not from that pig thing that he used to bash in her skull. She actually went outside of the barn to get the chainsaw, but died. And then that's where the police find him. That's another difference. Police are also looking for the guy that died, other than just the cop dying, and that's it. And so they find him. It's about 9 months later versus 18 months in the movie. And then here's the really interesting thing. If you remember in the movie, Paul completely burned the Misery's Return manuscript just to get one over on Annie. But what's interesting is that he actually hid the real manuscript under the bed, and he just burnt a fake one in front of her. And so Misery's Return gets published, and it's considered to be his best book ever. But, and also, I just kind of want to say this. I didn't love the movie's ending. It's just because it kind of got cut off for some reason. I don't know. So I do like the fact that the book has a bit more of an ending. Basically what happens is that Paul, I think after having dinner with his agent, like in the movie, he sees this kid rolling a wagon with a skunk in the cage, and then that inspires him to start his next book. And that scene was just completely gotten rid of in the movie. But anyway, so yeah, those are all really the differences I could find between the book and movie. I'm sure there are so many more, but I haven't read Misery as much as I've read Carrie, so I'm probably going to miss a lot more things that I did in Carrie. But yeah, guys, that is it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at some things that we might have missed in Misery. I think that the Shining reference was very cool, and the Annie's birthday being really funny, as well as the hobbling scene being very different. So yeah, just to recap, we went over just general differences and omissions between the book and movie. We talked about the book that Paul was writing before Misery's Return. We talked about her family and personal life. We talked about the Shining reference. And then we just kind of covered like everything here and there in between. So yeah, I think I got everything, but of course I may not have. As I just said, I have not read Misery as much as I've read Carrie, so I definitely remember a lot more things that were inconsistent in Carrie, I guess you could say. Which, by the way, part 2 will be happening. It'll be my next video. But outside of that, taking a look through everything that Misery kind of was as the book was very fun. And then, of course, the movie is just incredible as well. So I highly recommend checking out both of them if you have not. But anyway, yeah, that is about it from me. Stay tuned for more things you missed in X book. And yeah, I have been Mr. BG. This has been BG's Books, and I will see you guys in the next video.